baby. Mark Cuban joined Jalen Brunson's podcast, and they kind of discussed it all, Coop. We're going to talk about it here on Mavericks today. Harrison Graham and Jeffrey Cooperstein. Brunson, of course, had a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Controversial?
Yeah, controversial. Certainly public exit from the Mavericks to the New York Knicks. So we're going to dive into all that here on today's show. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you miss Jalen Brunson in Dallas? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. I feel like it's a tough question to answer, Coop, because I like Brunson. Cool dude, good player. But, like, we don't know how it would have played out had he been here and the other things hadn't happened. And how it's played out has been a trip to the NBA Finals. So, like,
Exactly.
it's hard to say yes because of that fact.
Yeah, I miss Brunson, the guy. I think he was really good for the Mavs in his 4 years here, but I can't say I miss him on the court because I think the Mavs got the better player. And that kind of transitions into the first takeaway I had from listening to this podcast is both parties are better off. I'm not sure Jalen Brunson ever becomes the superstar that he is right now if he didn't leave Dallas, and I'm not sure the Mavs ever become a true NBA title contender that they are right now if Brunson doesn't leave either. So I think at the end of the day, both parties are better off, and I think they acknowledge that as well.
Yeah, I think when you just like analyze the games of Kyrie and Brunson too, because that's obviously who Dallas ended up getting, is I think Kyrie had proven beforehand and has proven since here that he can be a more effective off-ball player.
Yes.
In New York, Brunson's running the show, and that's awesome for him. So, and Cuban kind of said that in this interview, like, hey, like all's well that ends well. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't the smoothest thing ever. We probably made a mistake in early on negotiations, yada yada. But you're a number one in New York. Kyrie's a perfect sidekick for Luka. Like, I mean, I definitely don't think Brunson blossoms to the level that we've seen because he just wouldn't get as many ISO opportunities here. And Kyrie has been able to kind of accept taking a number 2 role, but also being a very impactful off-ball player. So, yeah, I definitely think in the end this ended up working out for everyone involved.
And I thought this part of it was interesting. There was a breakdown in communication during their negotiations from both sides, where at one point the Mavs were basically saying that they never heard from JB's camp about a counteroffer from the Knicks, and JB at the same time was like, well, I never heard from the Mavs. So somewhere the wires got crossed, if you know, you know, but it feels like that both sides kind of felt like they didn't have a chance to counter the other side, and it ended up with Brunson just going to the Knicks. The Mavs say they never got a chance to really give him a true offer, while Brunson says the Mavs never communicated to him. So what kind of happened there?
I kind of feel like both parties like got a little butthurt here. You see this in negotiations in sports. Like the Niners and Brandon Ayuk are a good example of this. Like sometimes, like if you let your ego and feelings get involved, like it's just not going to end well. And
Absolutely.
we all have egos. We all think we're probably better than we actually are. And clearly the Mavs early on mismanaged things. Like if they could go back, they would give him the 4 for 52 or whatever it was going into that season. But to be fair, he had played himself out of the rotation in a playoff series.
Did.
So like while he had been a good player, he was not what he is now. Like it just you didn't have that level of information. So obviously that I think that pissed off Brunson, and you know once you got closer to the actual negotiations of him ultimately ending up in New York, I don't know if we'll ever have the full 100% details there, but I think both sides were kind of just fed up at this point, especially Brunson. And once his dad got into the fold, which we'll get to, I'm sure.
We will talk about that next.
That kind of sealed the deal. So, yeah, it's, I think when people start getting upset, naturally communication starts to break down because emotions take over.
Absolutely. We'll tell you about what Rick Brunson and the role he had involved in these negotiations in just a moment. But first, Harrison, tell them about today's sponsor.
Get yourself a Real One t-shirt. It's simple. chatsports.com/Real1. It's easy to remember. It's also in the description and comments. Clickable link, so you click and pick one up today. We have different colors. You can go with the black, kind of the Mavs blue, the Mavs green as well. Some other colors are available at that link if you want to get a non-Mavs themed one. Chatsports.com/Real1. If you're a Real One at Chat Sports, you're tuning into our videos, you're staying until the end, and if you want to represent, get yourself a t-shirt, chatsports.com/Real1. All right,
Alrighty.
Coop, let's get to it.
This part frustrates the hell out of me. So it starts by Jalen Brunson addressing this with Mark Cuban, and he straight up said that he didn't like when Mark Cuban mentioned Rick Brunson as part of the negotiations. Here's the direct quote from Brunson. He said, "Only thing I didn't like when Mark said when the parents got involved, things got messy. That was a little jab." Is that not what happened? Rick Brunson got involved in the negotiations and things went awry.
Yeah, and it's like, look, like, how much of a degree did Rick Brunson play in this? It's hard to say a percentage, but I'm sorry. If Rick Brunson is not on the Knicks staff, there is a much higher chance he returns to Dallas.
Well,
that is just common sense.
Yes, but also the fact that Leon Rose is basically family with Brunson as well as Thibodeau. Look, it's a weird dynamic. We all know Rick Brunson got involved and muddied things up in this. That's a fact. I do think it was weird that Cuban said he wasn't trying to take a jab at Rick when he said that. Why don't you just stand by what happened? It is a fact that Rick Brunson impacted these negotiations, so don't say it wasn't a jab when it clearly was. I think that kind of pissed Brunson off as well because it was. I mean, it was. Let's call it what it is. Cuban took a shot at Rick Brunson, and I think it was a fair shot because if Rick doesn't get involved in this, I still think JB might be a Mav today.
Yeah, I think if you listen to the club, and Mark even said, like, let's not do this here, I think it's the obvious answer of why he didn't, kind of just continue to go down that path is, one, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's over with. And two, is he trying to stir things up, like, 2 years later where he had already acknowledged, like, hey, like, this worked out for you and for us.
Exactly.
Like, it's one of those where it's like, yeah, I could continue to fight someone who I already beat up, but what's the point? I already beat him up. Like, it's one of those things.
I did think it was funny where Mark Cuban, like, basically said every time he sees Rick Brunson, they just give each other a nod and smile and keep on walking. Like, they're not even on speaking terms at this point.
They're not going to be boys, but, like, I think each party can acknowledge, like, hey, like, yeah, the Mavs probably undervalued him early on in the process, and the Knicks, hey, they were desperate for a guy that they thought could be a star, and he's turned into one.
Yeah.
Is he going to turn into one that can win a title? Time will tell, but obviously for New York, I mean, he's easily the biggest get since Melo. I mean, there's no question about that.
No question. And then kind of putting a bow on it, no hard feelings between the two, although I won't say there's definitely no hard feelings on Cuban's side. I do think Brunson a little resents the Mavs for how things went, just by how he was speaking about it. At the end when Cuban was like, there's no hard feelings, we still keep in touch, we still text and whatnot, and Brunson just goes, yep. So I don't think the Mavs have any hard feelings towards Brunson. Do I think Brunson maybe a little bit resents the Mavs? I do.
Look, he's a competitor, right?
Exactly.
Like, he believes in himself. He didn't feel like the Mavs valued him. And, I think whether that's true or not, I still think he's more upset about them not giving the offer before
the original extension.
Like the one by the time he signed with the Knicks, it was like, yeah, like you've at least established yourself to a certain level.
Yeah.
Now, would the Mavs have offered 5 for 106 or whatever it was, or 4 for 106? I can't remember the deal now. Who knows, right? Cuban says they weren't given the chance to. But yeah, I think JB, like most of these professional athletes, they have big egos, and that's why they're there. That's a large reason why they're there, because
Absolutely.
They have a strong self-belief of who they are as people and players. And look, I think it's easy for Cuban to not have hard feelings because it's worked out really well. You would hope, especially after this conversation, that JB can just move on too. It's like, dude, you're the number one in the city of New York. Like, who cares?
You're the
man?
king of New York, man.
Like, you were never gonna be that here. Like, even if like deep down you wanted to stay in Dallas, you would have never been that guy here. So like, I think it's one of those where it's like when you really just kind of sit back and digest. So I was like, yeah, that sucked in the moment, but kind of worked out.
It worked out for both teams, man. The Mavs are a true title contender. New York got their number one. I think Brunson can take them to the next level. All that remains to be seen, though. But let us know what y'all think down in the comment section. Would you rather have Kyrie Irving or JB? Type their initials down in the comments. I'm going to go with Kai, man. It's clearly worked out better than it did with Brunson. They got to the finals.
Yeah, I think Kai, especially as a number 2 sidekick, is a better just stylistic fit because his ability to play off ball. if you're saying in a vacuum at this point in their careers that Brunson's a better player, I could certainly hear that discussion. But for the Mavs, that's not really relevant because you have your number one in Luka. Kyrie's a good number two. He's been there, done that, gone through the battle. So, again, kind of I think the phrase of this whole thing is it worked out for everyone.
Let bygones be bygones.
Let's move on at this point. It's been 2 years, and Brunson's trying to make the Knicks true Eastern Conference contenders, and the Mavs are trying to take the next step, which is winning a title. So we'll see how it all plays out this year. He's Jeffrey Cooperstein. I'm Harrison Graham. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Indeed.
Watch some college football, and we'll see you guys soon.
See ya.